So I guess the music went down. So I guess that means we're starting. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the session where you're going to learn how to save money on Azure. I'm Joanna Van Gansen. I am the Group Program Manager for Azure Commercial Experiences. And what we do is we enable teams to sign up on Azure, track their costs, get their bill. We help them find ways to optimize their costs and save money. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I wanted to start out by introducing you to somebody from Microsoft that we've learned a lot from, and let's see what he has to say.
Hello, I'm Brad Wright. I'm a software engineering leader here at Microsoft and currently run the engineering for all of our financial systems at the company except for our SAP implementation. Previous to this, I had a job of moving all of Microsoft's infrastructure to the cloud. We were making progress, but not fast enough. And so the CIO at the time asked me to take on this job to run the finance and engineering portfolio because he figured if the cloud guy could move the toughest portfolio to the cloud, no one else would have an excuse. Over the last couple of years, we've made amazing progress. For the finance portfolio, I have everything but 2 systems in the cloud, and all up, we're over 90%. However, we discovered that many of our old habits and behaviors were creating new problems for us in the cloud. What we really discovered is that we had a bunch of teenagers working for us. They leave the water running, they leave the lights on, there's an old pizza box under the bed. I'll give you an example. The other day, we did a scan of one of our subscriptions. We found 32 terabytes of unattached storage just floating in space that hadn't been cleaned up. Some of it as old as 5 and 6 years old, thus the pizza box. Another example, I came in one morning, brought up a report I was looking at and noticed 5 P11 SQL databases running in a subscription. Those are really expensive databases, and they were sitting here empty. So I asked the team, what's going on? And they said, we're getting ready for a deployment. I'm like, great, when's the deployment? They said, in 2 weeks. So I had to ask the question, and I went ahead and asked it, so how difficult was it to set up those databases? And they said, oh, it was really easy, just took a few minutes. And it was at that moment that I understood what an aneurysm felt like. So here I had a team burning $30,000 worth of Azure compute for no good reason. So we realized very quickly we needed to change our behaviors. Also, some of our past decisions were haunting us as well. Certain policies put in place 20 years ago were creating situations where engineers had to select SKUs that were way more expensive than they needed. Also, the habit that engineers had gotten in a capital expenditure world where you provision for peak plus 30%, you order the hardware way in advance, get it deployed, and let it sit there, and then eventually make use of it. All those habits were coming into play and running up very large Azure bills, making it very difficult for us to operate. So we really needed to fundamentally change our culture. It wasn't a technology, it was a behavior. What are they watching? What are they looking at? What are they trying to optimize for? How do they plan? We need to bring a whole new set of tools to bear so that they can actually see these and we could bake it into the culture. What you're going to see here in this session here at Ignite is some of those tools that came out of the Azure team to help us with this. Because the other job I have, as well as those 2 that I already described, is also helping the Azure team understand what engineering teams at large companies need, such as my team.
Okay, so it sounds like a few of you have had similar experiences to Brad. So what have we learned from folks like Brad at Microsoft, as well as the numerous conversations that we've had with companies like yourselves who are deploying Azure at scale, also on other clouds? We've really learned that cost management is a team sport. It's not about one person or other. It's about a group of people coming together to really learn how to deploy at the cloud at scale in an optimized fashion. So before the cloud, budgets and costs were something that managers and finance dealt with in these long multi-year cycles, right? It was really about big capital expenditures, that they were heavily padded, the capacity, because they were dealing with long-term forecasting, and they thought, well, that's the best way that we can do. And the interesting thing that led to is about a less than 10% utilization rate on on-prem servers. And so we know that cost optimization and really getting every dollar out of your spend is the benefit of the cloud. The benefit of the cloud is that I can just spend only what I'm using. And so that situation isn't really that. So what the other part of the team that you have is app teams. And app teams are making decisions every day that affect cost and utilization. So the developers, the architects, the operators, They're making decisions in code. They're making decisions that are changing the utilization of how those costs are being impacted for your organization. And this whole situation can go really badly for companies that don't evolve to the new infrastructure and to the new way of doing things, and to really involve those app teams in that continuous optimization process and evaluation of their systems. So what we've learned is that you really need the tools and the processes that allow you to get the most and manage your costs out of the cloud. So the first step is really getting visibility into your costs. So how do you see what's going on, know what's going on with your system, have access to those costs that are always up to date and accurate? Another thing that you need to do is to get a broader set of understanding for all the key stakeholders. What's the impact that they're having? Are their goals set? And can we make people more accountable to those goals that you're setting for your organization? So this is similar to how things like reliability and performance became key KPIs for business leaders. They basically said to developers, hey, we really need your systems to be reliable. We need them to be performant. And so then they set those business goals. And then developers learned how to update their systems so that they could meet those performance and the reliability metrics. And that transition to the cloud, it requires a different mindset. And I wanted to share a quick story that I had many years ago. I was a developer, and I was working on a feature film. I was building some animation tools, and the producer came in and said, hey, guys, we have a budget for this film, and so we need you to reduce the cost of every frame by 50%. And so as a developer, I was like, what do you mean I have to reduce the cost? Well, I hadn't thought about a frame, right? How much that would cost. But what we ended up doing is, as the engineering team, we got together and we said, okay, well, how can we rethink these algorithms? How many times do we really need to call that function? Can we reduce that? Another thing that we learned is, hey, maybe I don't need a million polygons on that model for that frame. Maybe I can just do what matters for the perspective that you have on it. And it's really pretty similar in the cloud. You can rethink your algorithms. You can rethink how you're doing things to optimize for cost as to just what's necessary. So that was a great lesson for me. And the key thing here is that if you set goals, once these smart people get these goals and they understand what the business priorities are, they're going to rethink and they're going to want to meet those goals. And if you hold them accountable, you set the goals, they're going to do it. So let's go ahead and see what are we going to provide for you today so that you can optimize your cloud spend on Azure. So here's a few of our existing solutions that we have. Can I see a quick show of hands of how many people have already been using the enterprise portal? That's a lot. Great. How many people have been using Cloudit? Fantastic. So we purchased that last year. Azure Advisor, anybody taking advantage of Azure Advisor? All right, great. What about reservations? Anybody have reservations already? A little bit fewer, great. We're going to learn a lot about that today. How about Azure Hybrid Benefit? Just a few. We're going to learn all about those. Now, for all of you that have used these tools already, you might have noticed that maybe they don't work together so well from an end-to-end perspective. Maybe you have to go over here to do this, and you have to go over there to do that, and they don't really connect very well, right? So one of the things that I'm really excited to share with you today is we are announcing Azure Cost Management of public preview today. What we're doing is we're bringing all of these experiences together directly into the Azure portal so that you have access to all of your workflows seamlessly right in the portal. We're bringing the best of the enterprise portal, the best of cloud in, directly into the Azure portal. This will replace both of those experiences over time. Over time, the enterprise portal, you won't have to use that anymore, and you won't have to go to the separate portal of cloud in to take care of your cost optimization and cost management workflows. Initially, this is going to be launched for EA customers, but over time, it'll work for all customers, including CSP. All right, so what did we do when we brought Azure Cost Management into the portal? Well, one very important part, one of the things that we learned over the last year is that lots of people want to do cost management. It needs to scale. It needs to scale to all our customers, and it needs to be performant, and it needs to be low latency. So we are migrating all of that functionality right on top of the Azure infrastructure, which allows us to do that. really exciting part of that is that now, the latency on that data is less than about 80% of what it was from before. So we can get less than 8 hours of latency, of end-to-end latency for data, which is a lot faster than you might have experienced before. So that's a really exciting thing that we're excited to share with you. The other is that because it's on the Azure infrastructure and because it's directly in the Azure portal, it more seamlessly integrates with all the other features of Azure that you want to use, whether it be resource groups or management groups or tagging even. So all of those things come together a lot more seamlessly with Azure Cost Management. Another thing, as I was mentioning, it scales. It's on by default for all customers. So another key thing about this is that cost management we see as a core fundamental thing that you need to do as a part of working on Azure. It's a part of the platform. It should be available everywhere. And in order to light up all these features and to accelerate our delivery of them in the portal, and then of course to continue investing on them, we've actually more than doubled our R&D investment in this area. So one thing that's super important to consider is, as I was saying, it needs to be part of the workflow, it needs to be part of Azure. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to give people the flexibility to use cost management wherever they needed to access those costs. And this is more than just the portal. So of course, we have a great ready-to-use solution right in the Azure portal, and you'll be able to use that. But let's say you wanted to create a report for one of your execs in Power BI. Well, you can have the access to the same data right in Power BI. If that's where you are, you can use it there. Or let's say you're building out your own custom solution. You can use that with the APIs, the ARM APIs that we have available today for cost management. So we have that flexibility to use it wherever you would like to in your workflows. All right, so who wants to see what's working today in Azure Cost Management? Yay! All right, let's take a look. Okay. So here I am in the Azure portal, and I have a little tool pinned here, but I just want to show you. If you go into your all services, you see a new one called Cost Management and Billing with the word preview next to it. We'll be talking about this more, but basically we'll be rolling out features over time in a very iterative, agile fashion, and we'll always start out sort of in a preview, and then once they meet the performance and reliability that we expect, we'll go GA. So let's go into that. Now, the first thing I want to do before we dive into actually analyzing our costs, I want to make sure that everybody has access to seeing the costs that I want to have access to seeing the costs. Previously, you'd have to go to the EA portal, and so you could view what those role policies that were set up. But I'm going to show you how you can see that today in Azure portal. So I'll go ahead and click on Account Overview. I'll choose the enrollment that I'm interested in, and then Policies. So as I mentioned, these flags were only settable in EA portal before. Today, you can see them in Azure portal. They're not yet editable, but they will be over time. Like I was saying, we're rolling things out as fast as we can, but we're trying to bring you as much value as early as possible, so it's read-only for now. You'll be able to edit them later. And you can see there's a couple policies here that you might want to set that are related to costs in terms of whether or not department admins or account owners can view charges and costs. So I'm happy with the way those policies are set up. Now I want to go analyze my costs. So let's go back to so here's a new view that you probably haven't seen before. It's showing me the list of the enrollments and the subscriptions that I have access to. So let's go ahead and drill into this enrollment. So right here already, you can see I have an overview of all my charges and credits in a month-over-month view, as well as my credit burn down over here. I can click on this breakdown link, and I can see what are going to be charged against my credits, or what's going to be charged separately. There's actually, so this is great. I can get this overview. There's also a couple different ways that I can get data. Let's say I wanted to export out a CSV so that I can hook that into another system or view it in another way. If I click on this link here, I'll get a summary overview that will include things like summary balances and charges. But let's say I wanted a little bit more data to be downloaded. I can click on usage and charges. and then I see a list per month, and I can click on this little download icon here, and this will give me more information, detailed charges, price sheet, marketplace charges, as well as other balances. That's how I can get that. So now I know how to get the overview. I can export them out to a file. Let's go back into our overview. And let's dive in and look at our costs. Let's see if there's anything going on here that I might want to do something about. So as I look through, I notice there's a little bit of a spike in August. And so I might want to go figure that out. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's see if I can break down these charges a little bit and get more information. So why don't we check out to see what's going on in this enrollment per department. So here I have a list of departments. It's populating in my costs. This one seems to be pretty high. Let's see if we can figure out something else. I go into there. I see, again, the list of charges just for this department. That's interesting, but doesn't really give me the information that tells me why that spike might have happened in August. So let's go ahead and click into accounts. I only have one account. I click in that. And again, I see some more information about my costs broken down. This might seem somewhat familiar to people who've used EA Portal. Again, this is a view that you could have only seen in EA Portal previously, and today you can see it directly in Azure Portal. So I still see the information, and I see, okay, the spikes, but again, I want to go further. I want to drill in even more. I want to analyze my costs at the next level. So let's see what else we can do. I'm going to go all the way back up to Cost Management Billing. I'm going to choose my enrollment, and there's this new menu item here called Cost Analysis. So I'm going to click that. So here I am. I get a summary view of my enrollment. I can see it broken down by a different set of parameters and properties that I can change. Up here, I have a way to change the date. So let's do a little bit of an analysis on just the last quarter, see if we can get some more detail. So here I see the last quarter. It's a nice filled-in view. I kind of want to see that daily view, see what's going on there. That helps a little bit. I can start to see a spike here. That's pretty good. But I want to see a little bit different visualization of my costs. So I can click over here and choose, say, a stacked view. OK, that's a little bit better. But I really want to know, hey, what's going on with these costs? What's causing this spike? Maybe I want to break it down by service to see maybe there's a particular service that's causing this spike. I can choose Group By. And you can see I have a whole bunch of options in terms of parameters that I can break that down by. And I'm going to choose Service Name. So here I see, with the different colors, I can see virtual machines, Azure Stack. I can see the different services that are contributing to those costs. And this kind of gives me the information, but I'm going to try a different view to see if it'll pop a little bit better. So here I see a line view, and this really helps a lot, right? I can clearly see that this blue line here, which happens to be my virtual machines, is causing the majority of that spike. That's great information, but I can go even further. If I look down here, remember I talked about these different ways of breaking down the costs, I can see, again, service name, and there's my virtual machines that are the biggest contributor. If I click into that, it's going to drill into that, and it's going to simplify my view. It's going to filter my cost view by what I selected in that chart. And that's super helpful. So now I want to go one level deeper. I know what the service is. So what else can I learn? Well, a lot of organizations use resource groups for tracking business units or apps, right? So let's see if we can break down our costs on the VMs based on that resource group. So what I can do is choose Group By, and this is going to be applying another filter on top of the view that I have below. And here you can see I've got the spike. You know, I kind of see this is all going on in August. So let's even reduce the view to just August. So here you can see I have my different resource groups. Again, they're listed down here. And I can see they're all pretty flat except for this blue one. And that's named Jumper. All right, so I've got Jumper. He's causing the majority of that spike. I can go one level deeper, right? Maybe there's more information I can get about that resource group that will help me indicate, hey, who's causing this cost? Who do I need to go track down and tell them, hey, you're causing a big spike. I'm worried about the budget. So let's go ahead and choose resource group name in this chart, and then again, filter in by jumper. So that's great. I can clearly see that the spike is happening there, and I can even go one level deeper. Let's say you wanted to see, well, is there a particular meter that is causing this price jump? So I can go one level deeper, choose the meter, and now you can see I have 2 meters and how that breaks down across. So that's really useful, really great way. And remember how I was telling you, there's one more thing I want to show you about the cost analysis, which is pretty cool. So remember, we're moving fast. We want to bring this value to all of our customers as quickly as possible. And the team's been working hard, and I'm really excited because last night they said, hey, Joanna, you can show tags. And I'm like, yes. So, so literally, yesterday I added this to the demo, but I wanted to show it to you because I know a lot of you use tags, and we've been getting a lot of questions about it in the conference. So let's go ahead and add a filter. Let's get rid of my group by. Let's add a filter. Let's choose tag. So I've chosen tag. And then let's say I want to see what environment. Maybe I'm worried about my dev environment to see if they're causing a bunch of the spikes. So I do that. And then that shows me the filter based on that dev environment, which is awesome. So tags, yes. OK. All right, so all of the costs that we've been able to deep dive and check out was at the enrollment level. Well, we all know that you want to manage your costs and check out the visibility of your costs at many different scopes. So it's just as easy to get a view onto your costs at the subscription level as it is the enrollment. So let's check that out. I'm going to go back to my cost management and billing blade. And I'm going to choose this time, instead of picking on the enrollment, I'm going to choose this cost management item. And there's this new button up here called Change Scope. So let's click on that. So here was my enrollments that I looked on. But I want to choose a subscription this time. So I'll choose Cost Management Demo, which is what we're doing. And then I'm going to choose Cost Analysis again. And as you can see, I get the exact same view at the subscription level. I can drill in, do the group by, do the filtering, all that good stuff right there. OK, so we've seen how to track costs in the portal, but I promised you that you would be able to also see your costs in other ways. So let's take a look at what this same subscription looks like in, I want to just flip this back to August. Let's see what this same subscription looks like in Power BI. So here I'm in Power BI. I want to look at, say, my costs for by month. I can click on that tab. And then right in here, I can click in on August and notice that I'm seeing the exact same values, for about 4,900, as I'm seeing in the portal. It's the same data, same latency, all that good stuff in Power BI. And that's great, but I could see that information in the portal. So there's a few other dashboards and things that you can play around with and check out that give lots more information. Here's just showing some different options that you can look at, some different groupings. So feel free to play around with that or create your own dashboards. OK, so now we have the analysis. We've seen it in cost analysis in the Azure portal. We've seen it in Power BI. But let's say you wanted to take all this data and export it out to a storage account that then you could access and hook into maybe your own custom experiences or your own dashboards. So let's go ahead and go back into the portal. And I can go right down here into Export. And this shows me I've actually set up a few. So what I can do here is I can schedule an export. So I can say, hey, dump this out to a storage account so that I can then ingest it maybe through an automated process and do additional telemetry or maybe your own systems. So this is what this is enabling. Here I already have one set up. Let's click in to see. I've got the subscription scope that I'm using. It's a daily export, and it's linked to this storage account. Now note that you're going to have permissions to that storage account to set up the export. I'm not actually going to click on that right now. I'm going to close that off, but also show you it's super easy to add your own export, just specifying the information that you do and do create. And so you can create a variety of those. So that's really great. There is one more thing that I wanted to mention. This is just a sneak peek. As I was saying, we're constantly working on this. And for those of you folks that have been using Cloudin already, you might have noticed that maybe you have a multi-cloud deployment. Maybe you work with more than one provider. Well, we are bringing that functionality into Cloudin, or from Cloudin into the Azure portal. So here I am again in my cost analysis. I can go to group by and choose provider. And now I can see my AWS and my Azure costs right in the Azure portal. And this just goes to show you the commitment that we have to really work with you on seeing your costs in the way that you need to and recognizing the fact that this is of value. And we bought Cloudin for a reason, and we want to continue with making the best experience for you on Azure. OK. Demo. We'll come back to demo. Don't worry. We have lots more. But I have more to talk to you about in terms of what we're going to be bringing for all of you. OK. So now that we have a better understanding of how to get visibility, click. Oh, 1 second. There you go. Now that you have a better visibility into your costs, the next step is accountability. So we see what all the costs are, and we really want to say for our stakeholders, hey, how do we drive this cost optimization? How do we have people have better accountability? So we talked about the stakeholders earlier, management and finance. So the key here is that we can start using additional features of Azure, like management groups and RBAC and tagging, to really extend the visibility. So for example, let's say that actually, I'm just going to jump right in. Rather than talking to this slide, let's go to the next one. So let's talk about management groups. This we've just recently added to the capability set for Azure. And you might already be familiar with subscriptions and resource groups for controlling access to your resources. But we've also, as you've been designing cost management, what we realized was that people really needed a way to structure to create an organizational hierarchy that matched their, the way they think about their business. And that's really what Management Group provides. And it's a really great way to organize and view your costs in the context of how you think about your business. So you can create those management groups to fit your own hierarchy. And then you can apply RBAC and tags according to that management group level, which gives you the ability to create budgets, to analyze your costs for that whole hierarchy, or for subgroups of that scope within the management group. Another really great feature of management groups is that it's a shared context across Azure. And so that allows us to have access to all the additional management and security services in the context of management groups. It's a really powerful thing, and we'll be continuing to invest in management groups and how we can tie it together into costs. So now once we've mapped into our organizational hierarchy, the next thing we want to do is provide access in a way that makes sense for our business. So we do provide out-of-the-box least privileged roles specifically for cost management. So for example, you might want to give cost management reader to one of your upper management because maybe they need to get details about costs, but you don't want to have them access about all the detail for every single resource. So that's where a cost management reader might be really useful. Another one is, let's say you have a finance analyst who wants to set some budgets. You might give them cost management contributor, which allows them to create budgets across those teams. And then, of course, we also support the Azure roles that are included. So if you have reader, then you can have a resource to see your cost management information. Or if you have a contributor owner, then you can configure budgets and other cost management things, as well as look at all your resources. OK, so I've set up my organizational hierarchy. I've set up the access. Who needs to see what? The next thing I want to do is start to create that accountability through budgets. Sorry, through tags. I set up my organizational hierarchy. I've created my roles, and now I want to do tags. So we talked about tags are super important. As you can see here, a lot of people track cost centers. I hear this a lot from customers. Hey, how do I track my cost centers? A great way to do that is with management groups and tags. That's one really useful thing you can do with tags. Another one is, let's say you want to know, hey, is something over budget? You can then use the tags to say what person is associated with this particular resource with this tag, and then you know who to notify. It's a great way to use tags as well. Of course, once you apply all these tags, you can use policies to then apply policies based on the tags for those resources. Again, how this all kind of comes together. So let's go ahead and look into, see if I missed anything else here. Another great useful thing there is in terms of app teams, they might want to know what is a particular application context. That's another great way to use tags. And I'm sure that you have 10, 20, 50 other ways that you want to use tags in your organization. All right, now we're going to talk about budgets. So budgets are a really great way to notify teams when they're approaching or over their budget. When we talked about accountability, well, first I need to know, well, where are things going wrong? And budgets provide a really great way to do that. We've enabled it so that you can connect a budget to an action group. And this is a great way to initiate automation or send notifications via email or SMS to people so they can actually action on that, right? Hold them accountable, give them the tools to make the changes that are necessary. Another cool thing about budgets is that you can create multiple budgets for a particular scope and then apply the budgets only by specific filters like we were looking at with cost analysis. So for example, if you want to track VM costs separately from a budget, or if you want to look at maybe a budget for a particular cost center, you can do that. So another thing that we can do, so today in the Azure portal with the preview, you can access and create budgets at the subscription level. Let's say you need a little bit more flexibility, you want to start playing with that today, the ARM APIs that I was talking about, you can actually have a little bit more access and you can set budgets at different scopes. So feel free to play around with that. And over time, we'll be moving those capabilities into the user experience as well. But for now, I just wanted to call that out. So for your own custom solutions, sometimes those APIs will be a little bit ahead of the UI, so feel free to play around with those. So finally, you always want to see that budget in context of your costs. So the budgets are visually integrated in with the cost analysis visualization that we were looking at earlier, and I'll show that in a little bit. So again, that's a great way. Remember, we talked about goals and holding people accountable. These budgets are a really great tool for you to use in that journey. Okay, let's go check out in the portal how all of these things come together and how you can use it. All right, here we are. So the first thing that I wanted to show you was, let's go ahead, bring these things together by setting up a policy that will apply. So I'm going to click here and choose policy. This is going to load up all the policies that I already have configured for this subscription. And then I want to create a new one. So I'm going to click on assignments. And this is going to load policies that I've already assigned, but I want to create a new one. So I'll click Assign Policy, and let's pick the scope that we want to apply this to. So this shows me a whole bunch of things. And remember, we talked about management groups. I'm going to choose this management group, hit Select, and then I want to apply a policy. So we talked about this is showing me 101 policies. That's great that I could use definitions. But I know I want to do something around cost center and tags, so I can type in tags in the search box and hit Enter. And this gives me a couple choices. I can enforce the tag and its value. I can apply a tag in the default value. Hey, that sounds pretty good, because one thing that I know is I want to make it really easy for developers, maybe so that they don't even have to do anything. So I'm going to create this policy so that they can say, hey, for every resource created, apply this tag and a default value. So at the management group level, I'm going to create one that is for my cost center. So I can specify my tag name, say cost center, And then I can say my cost center value, say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now, whenever a resource is created, those tags will be automatically applied, so nobody has to do anything. That's even the best, right? OK, so I can hit assign, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to really create it right now. And that's how you can get those policies assigned. So that's great. So let's go ahead and jump a little bit more into management groups. And what can I do with management groups in the tool? I'll go back to my cost management and billing. I'm going to choose cost management. And remember, we had a look at this change scope. Let's click that again. And last time you might have seen this. I didn't click on it, but it has a nice icon that indicates a hierarchy. I bet you that's management groups. And then I'm going to choose the same management group that I created that policy on, which is trade research. So let's click that. We'll select it, and then go into cost analysis. So here I am in the context of my management group, and I can do all the same things that I could do before. I can drill in on costs, add filters, all of that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a few things here. Next thing that we talked about was budgets. So let's say I wanted to see, actually, sorry, 1 second, I made a mistake. Remember I was telling you how right now budgets are applied at the subscription level? That's what I really wanted to do, was choose my subscription. OK, much better. So let's go ahead and click on budgets and see what is available to us in the portal. So here I can see it's going to load up the budgets that I've already created for this subscription. So I have one here. I can see that I'm getting close to that budget. Let's click it and see what information is specified. This one has a couple different thresholds at 50%, 75%, 90%. And this is using those action groups that I talked about. So you could go ahead and set up an email notification or some automation that you wanted to, depending on what threshold. You might want to notify a different person or have a different action based on what the threshold of the budget that got hit. So that's really useful. I can edit the budget directly. And I can also, just like in the policies, create a new one really simply in the UI by specifying all of the parameters that you're interested in. Here's where I could create a threshold. I don't want to do 400%, things like that. Or I could just simply say, hey, send an email when I go over budget, if you don't want to go through and set up the action group. So now I know how to set up budgets, but I want to see them in the context of my subscription in cost analysis. So if we go back to cost analysis, you can see here I have my budget, and it's showing me that I'm getting pretty close to the budget. Let's see how we did last month. And I can see I went a little bit over budget. So really easy for me to see budgets in relation to my costs in cost analysis. All right, let's go back and learn what else we have available to us. So go to the next slide. All right, so let's talk a little bit about roadmap and what we're doing here. So as I mentioned earlier, we're really at the beginning of a multi-year transition from the enterprise portal and Cloud In to having everything directly available within Azure Cost Management in the Azure portal. And we're going to continue to support those previous solutions while we're making this transition. So you can kind of see on this graph on the bottom, it's an abstract visualization of how the transition will happen over time. So as you can see, the purple goes down, and the blue goes up, and that in the beginning, we really feel that we're front-loading all of those features that we think are going to add the most value and enable the most customers to move over into the portal as quickly as possible. That's something that we would love feedback from all of you as you start to use the preview. Hey, do you have what's needed? What is that feature that you would need so that we can get you migrated over? And the really great news is, as I mentioned, all of the things that I showed you today, with the exception of the cross-cloud support, is available today in the preview. So that includes all of the cost analysis work that I showed you. It includes the budgets, management groups, all the EA billing and account experience in the portal, as well as our new and updated ARM APIs and the Power BI pack updates. So all that is available today. We're going to be continually updating, as I mentioned. So you will see new capabilities every month, maybe even on a weekly basis. And we're going to keep adding new benefits. For example, we're going to be adding new features like to improve our right-sizing recommendations. We're going to have support, as I mentioned today, that the preview supports EA accounts. We're going to be adding pay-as-you-go, as well as the AWS views that I showed you. As I mentioned, we're always going to start in public preview. That's how we do, so that we can get things out as fast as possible. And then as it gets more robust and reliable and hits the performance targets that we want, we'll go GA. So finally, over the next calendar year, we're going to continue with the rest of the features that we know are super important to all of our customers, like chargeback, cross-cloud, and of course, support for our CSP partners. All of that is coming. One more thing, for those of you who have been following cost management since we purchased Cloudin, one of the things that we realized was that, hey, cost management is just a fundamental way of how you deal with Azure, and we really just want that available to everybody. So I'm excited to say we're going to make all cost management capabilities free on Azure. No more till the end of the year, until this time, it's just free. That's it. Okay, so we're now, let's see, 40 minutes in, and I haven't really talked about optimization yet, and the title of this session is optimization, so let's get to that part. We've shown you how to get visibility into your costs. We talked about how you can hold people accountable, set those goals through budgets. But now I want to talk to you about how do you take all of that and optimize. So, I didn't really want to, okay. So optimization is really the key to success in the cloud. And I want to just take a simple example so that we can kind of drill this message home a little bit about the behavior of helping people learn the new behaviors that are needed in the cloud. So the workload in orange will work in any of those VMs, correct? But which one would the developer choose? Remember, they're measured by performance and reliability. Yeah, they're going to choose the first one because they'll know it's always going to work in the first one, right? But guess what? It's always going to work in the third, too. And the third is the one that gives you the best business outcome. So this is just a simple visualization, but it's a really important message. And so how do we help developers make the right choice? What's a good way to start? The best way to start is to tell them how they can save money on the things that they've already deployed that they know the behaviors on. So let's talk about recommendations. One of the great things about integrating Azure Cost Management right into the portal is that we can have a much richer and deeper integration with Azure Advisor and the recommendations. We also allow people, users, to jump quickly from when they're viewing their costs right into the recommendations. So it's a really nice workflow. You can see what's going on with your resources and then say, hey, I can make some changes here to save some money. We have recommendations for both right-sizing as well as reserved instances. And so that helps in terms of the resource utilization as well as better purchasing choices. And this is going to help them make choices that help stay under budget. And we're going to be constantly improving and evolving our recommendations. So we have a few available today, but this is an area that we're going to be continuously investing and looking for new opportunities. So let's talk a little bit more about the first option here, reserved instances. So the first way that you can really save a lot of money is to learn about which VMs can benefit from a reserved instance. And you can really save a lot of money with reserved instances. If you have predictable and consistent usage over a 1 or 3 year time, you can actually save up to 72%, that's a lot, by using reserved instances off of those pay-as-you-go prices. Okay, and there's a lot of flexibility that we provide with the reserved instances. So they can be used across any family and region. So it doesn't have to be the same instance all the time. So that's really fantastic. The nice thing about reserved instances too, especially for finance and budgeting, remember in the very beginning I said, hey, finance and managers, they've been used to like setting a budget a year in advance and then having that predictability of budget. And reserved instances, if you have predictable workloads, is a great way to get that predictability on budgets as well. So that's a nice thing for finance and managers, that they can have that. Now, reserved instances aren't just about VMs. We're constantly adding new opportunities for reserved instances for PaaS services like SQL Database, Cosmos DB, or SUSE. So those are great things, and we'll be continually looking at new opportunities for us to create more offerings there. There's another really great way to save, which is Azure Hybrid Benefit. So if you have software assurance on your Windows server or SQL server, you really want to use Azure Hybrid Benefit. And this enables you to bring that on-prem license rights for your Windows Server and SQL Server for use on your Azure VMs and save 85%. Okay, so that's pretty awesome. But as you can see, if you combine Azure Hybrid Benefit, RIs, you can really get up there into that 93%. It's really fantastic. And with this, there really isn't another cloud provider that provides a better value for running your Windows Server and SQL Server workloads. So please do take advantage of that if that's a situation that maps for you. OK, we've looked across visibility, accountability. Now it's time to go and see how can I do all this stuff in the portal as well. So let's go back to our demo. All right. So here I am, back in the Azure portal. One thing that I wanted to, I didn't pop it up. Oh, I did. OK, one of the things that I wanted to, my pre-demo setup, worked, my little steps that I used. OK, so here's an example. One of the things is you can say, hey, there's these recommendations, that's great, but it means that somebody has to go and look at what the recommendations is. So one of the things that we have is, when you have new recommendations, you can get an email that says, hey, you have some new recommendations, go ahead and click on it. So I'm just showing you this email so that, and let's click on it, just for fun. So make sure that, if you have an email account set up for Azure, that you see if you're getting email so that you can get that and click on those links and get those access to those recommendations. So here you can see I come to the advisor recommendations page. I have a few options here for me. I can click on them there, but if I wanted to go back in, say I'm in cost management, I'm in my cost analysis, right from there I can choose advisor recommendations as well. So it's in context. So let's click on that as well, and let's see what is available here for me. All right, so I have two recommendations. One is that I can save a bunch of money with reserved instances, and another is on right-sizing. So let's check out the right-sizing one first. So remember I was saying that I get the recommendation, and I say, OK, well, it's telling me that I can save some money by right-sizing, but I want to validate that against my usage. So I clicked right on View Usage, and you can see, yep, that's pretty low. It's not 0, but it's pretty low. So I am going to take that advice. I'm not going to shut it down. Now note, this 1900 is relative to if I actually shut down that VM. But let's go see about how I can resize. And this shows me in blue the instance that's currently being used. And since my usage is lower, I could easily pick the D2 V3, save some money. I did want to highlight that pretty important to consider is that this action does restart the VM. So you might want to be aware that if you're going to click and change that, maybe that should be, especially if it's on a production environment, maybe that should be non-business hours. So please be aware of that. All right, let's go back and see what else we've got on our recommendations. So here's our one for buying reserved instances. I can click on that. And this is showing me I have a whole bunch of subscriptions. As with many places in the portal, I can go ahead and filter down to just the subscriptions that I'm interested in. And then I can go ahead and click on that. So this shows me some of my options. And if I click shared, remember I mentioned this before, that this will actually make this reservation benefit any subscription in the enrollment. So it adds some flexibility there. And then instance size flexibility allows the benefits to be applied across the VM SKU family. So there's just some options available for you. I can choose my term. And then here I can see the cost savings for my particular selection and my configuration. Okay, so we've seen how we can use recommendations. We've seen right sizing, reserved instances. The last thing I talked about that I wanted to highlight was that Azure Hybrid Benefit. And so just a few hands went up on that. So let me show you how you can find that, because it might not necessarily be super obvious to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and choose, I chose my virtual machines blade. I'll just pick the top one. And then it's in this, I'll admit it, a long menu, but that's okay. I'm going to click configuration. And then if you click yes on the hybrid benefit, that will apply that. And of course, you want to confirm. It's a little bit of an honor system. Let's just say yes, I know I have that license. Let's click that. Okay. So that's the demo on all the optimization. So are you guys feeling pretty good that you're feeling like you know how to get visibility, you know you can drive accountability, and some ideas for optimization, saving money on Azure? Hopefully the answer is yes. Yes? See, I should clip my demo slide before I actually demo. It would make it a lot more impactful. Okay, so now you're saving so much money. You're using reserved instances. You're using Azure Hybrid Benefit. You're super excited. Your business is excited. Your boss, your managers, your finance team is coming to you, go, oh my gosh, you're amazing. So happy you're saving us so much money. And so what are you going to do? That's right. Fantastic. And there's lots of ways that I can suggest that you can save more. You can spend more money. One is, hey, why don't you migrate a few more workloads? That would be great. Another one would be, hey, why don't you modernize? You know, one of the things when we talk to customers is, how do we get on more PaaS services? You can save even more money. Finally, you could take that and invest more into your security and management solutions. So now we met Brad at the beginning. And Brad was really telling you the story of what it was like for him several years ago. So let's check back in with him and see how things are going today.
Once we got visibility into costs with the tools that you saw today and others we built ourselves, the engineers were able to adopt a different culture and a different way of operating. Cost became an integral part of their live site culture, not just the health of the service, but also was it efficient. They could look at this on a daily basis, understanding what's needed from a usage perspective and optimizing cost versus value. This allowed them to then take more advanced steps using spin up and spin down on demand, burst provisioning, auto scaling, and then full infrastructure as code. What this allowed them to do was to actually only provision things when absolutely needed. So for instance, one of our large data warehouses has no pre-production environments at all. Its entire infrastructure is defined in the code. And when they need to do a new build, it will literally deploy all the resources in a resource group in Azure, load the data, run all the tests, and then destroy that resource group after about 3 hours. And so instead of having a 24/7 large infrastructure in place, it's only there as long as it's needed. These advances allowed the culture to change such that people didn't have to think so far ahead and over-provision things constantly. Instead, could do things on demand, making the teams much more nimble as well as cost-conscious. They also started getting really educated about the different SKUs Azure offered, because now they could clearly see what was costing them a lot of money versus not, and what the different performance characteristics were. So this became part of their design culture as well. Now we're moving into the new phase where the designs are getting even more extreme. We're using serverless computing and functions as a service, where we're able to take things that were costing $10,000 a month and are now costing $1 a day to run, because they are only provisioned as needed for the given user base at the given time. So all this visibility and awareness has created an entire new engineering culture for a cloud-focused world.
So that's pretty cool. 10,000 to $1. It's kind of mind-blowing, I think. So we really want you to get started. Check out the preview, view your EA costs, tell your friends. Let's get them all on the portal. Let's get them all using the preview. Provide feedback. We really want to hear it. If you have issues or if you love it, either way, we want to hear about it. Use the reserved instances. Check out your recommendations. Use Azure Hybrid Benefit. And then, of course, reinvest those savings. We have lots more places for you to get information. There's some links in the deck when that comes out, but you can go to azure.com. We have a new video that we just put up on Azure Cost Management, and we have a bunch of documentation's all been updated. Lots of information on there that has been updated for all of the new integrations and the new capabilities that we've added. We also have a Twitter account for Azure Cost Management. Go ahead and lots of exciting stuff there. Who wouldn't want to follow a Twitter account called Cost Management? I don't know. And then there's some other sessions there. I think some of those might have already happened, but you can check them out. Please fill out your evaluation. That's how we get better. Appreciate that. And I would be happy to take any questions while we have some time. If you could use the mic, that would be great.
So you mentioned that this is free for Azure. What is there plans to have a charge for AWS? Or
Yeah, we'll be charging a 1% for management underspend.
Okay, thank you.
I forgot my question. Go ahead.
I have two questions.
Okay.
For the budgeting, are they working to apply that down to the resource group level or down to even tags instead of just subscriptions?
Yeah, definitely resource group level. And tags. And that's available in the API today.
It is?
Will be eventually available in the user experience, but it
Okay.
isn't in the preview yet.
Okay, so they are working on it.
Yes.
And the second question is about reserved instances.
Yes.
So we use those a lot. But it's hard to see the reserved instances in budgets or in cost management just because of the way that reserved instances apply. You can't apply it to a specific VM or a specific resource group. It just kind of applies, you know how it works.
I do. Yeah.
So are they looking at capturing your reserved instances costs in cost management at some level?
Yeah, so you want to basically see it, how does it amortize out across the cost over time kind
Or
of.
I'd love to apply it to a specific resource group or a specific tag and say this particular department is using this reserved instance, and so they're at this level of their budget. We use reserved instances a lot.
Yeah, that's great
so
feedback. Hey, Michael, can you write me down some notes?
I can talk about it.
Yeah, he'll take a note on that, and that's great feedback. Appreciate it. Okay.
I have two. The hybrid benefit, you said it's kind of a honor system.
Yeah, that might change over time.
Sure. Is that not tied to your enterprise agreement, like the SPA, the software assurance?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is tied to your EA. Yeah.
So would it? Why is it honor system?
We should be able to automate that. It's just not today.
All right. And then could you clarify the difference in the RBAC stuff between the cost management reader and just the bland global reader?
Yeah.
I have a coworker who can't see historical data, and he has the reader permission, and I saw these new permissions. And
The cost management ones are specific to cost management. That's where they're least privileged. So there's other things that Azure Reader would give you that cost management reader wouldn't. So think of it as more scoped. If there could be, what you're describing could be a RBAC setup, or there could be a bug. So don't hesitate to reach out, and if you can't figure it out, and let's see if we can get somebody to check it out and
Thank you.
there's an issue.
Yeah, do you have a tool to scan those VMs so we can suggest, so that we can, based on the information that you give to the developers, suggesting power down or, some.
You want a way to look at the usage of a particular VM so that you can.
Just overall, basically, let's say subscription. If I have a tool to scan that every night to send email to developer question him,
I'm not sure, actually. So the question is, you would like a tool to scan a VM to
Right.
generate your own emails? That-
Yes, it's not even to the money level yet, just on the VM level, right?
Yeah, just to sort of say, hey,
So
well, that is what the Azure Advisor is doing through its recommendations. If that's not sufficient for you, I'm not really sure I could take your name and follow up on. I'm not actually sure if we have some things, tools specifically for,
Okay, okay,
unless I'm not understanding, but yeah.
all right, okay, thank you.
Oh, you know when we talked about those scheduled exports? You could schedule an export and then put something that sends that report to somebody. That might be a way you could do that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah?
all right, okay.
Okay.
Two things. We've also got the requirement of tying reserved instances to resource groups.
Yes?
So that'll be something fantastic to be able to actually do as well. The second thing is, one of the things that we've actually noticed from downloads of the EA portal of the download usage is if you download it at different points after a month end, you get different values.
Yeah.
And that's something that, because we are actually doing transparent pass-through to some of our clients, and we realized that that's actually happening, we're kind of in a bit of a state of flux as to how we actually get the correct billing to our clients. We're almost like having to wait at least about 7 to 10 days after a month end.
Yeah, there can be some, we're working on providing better, it's good feedback. At a minimum, we should be telling you when things are locked. There are sometimes reconciliations that happen after month close. So I hear you on that. That's great feedback. I don't have a better answer for you in terms of, other than, yes, we're aware of
Just
that.
wait until 10 days after the month end before doing anything.
Yeah, well, one thing that we could do, I'm just thinking out loud here a little bit, is there might be ways that we can at least tell you if there are things still coming in, right?
Or confirm when it's locked.
Yeah, something like that. It's something like that would be good. Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, so I love the view recommendations. Can that be pushed down? This may have been related to the other question, but can this be pushed down to the actual owner of a resource group? So as we have a tag by, let's say, an email address assigned to each resource group, and a resource group to us is an application.
Yeah, I believe that recommendations could possibly go to a resource group, but I'm not 100%.
Okay.
I'm looking to see if anybody, does it work for resource groups? Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Maybe you guys can show me.
Yeah,
how to
it might
do
be in the
that offline.
documentation too. But if you give your information to Michael, I'll follow up with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. This is good. I get extra steps because this conference center isn't big enough.
Will this also work with CSP provision subscriptions?
Yes, CSP will be added next year.
Okay, and then we will also get rid of these stupid remarks like this is managed outside of the Azure portal?
Yes,
All right.
over time.
Okay.
I agree with you. That the banner, you're like, really?
It's for customers that use the CSP. It's not very nice.
Yeah. So we would like to provide a much better experience for CSP
Yeah.
customers, and that's coming. It's
Great.
just not today.
All right, no,
Okay.
I'll wait. Thank you.
Okay.
We have a pretty heavy use of tags management. Groups weren't available at the time we set up, so we have like everything under one department. So department, we have a tag for department that we use instead. So to separate things, we noticed that that wasn't there, and so it was great to see it on the presentation. But we didn't see it come in through Cloud and for Power BI, that report or that pre-built one doesn't have it by default. Is there? Our TAM was able to help me get a copy of the original PBIX so I can modify it.
Yeah.
Is there like a repository that
We've
that
actually,
update will happen?
that Power BI has been updated for the new ARM APIs. I would expect that you should be able to see all the tag information in that, if not today, soon.
Okay.
Yes, it should be. We've updated the Power BI pack for this new preview release
Okay. Thank you very
for
much.
some of these features, yeah.
Yeah, my question is very simple. When virtual machines are replicated to a different zone for
Yes.
disaster recovery purposes, do you charge for different instances of the same machine? Or
The instance size the flexibility, I think, allows it to span region, so it just depends where the region is.
yeah, so do you charge for different, Now the virtual machines are now running on 2 different zones at the same time. Do you charge for
If they're within the same region, it would.
different regions?
Instance size flexibility is within the region and the same family. So if you are, let's say, in US East,
Yeah, and then
and you need to change regions, then instance size flexibility would not.
okay, all
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, thank you.
That's G, or is our marketing guy? Yeah, G. Oh. Guillermo. Thank you, Guillermo.
I also have some questions. Is it possible to save the budgets with a delete log?
Save the budget with a log?
Yes, because everyone can delete this budget.
Oh, that's a great, we should look at it in terms of how the RBAC works with budgets. That's a great suggestion. Yeah, thank you for that. Yep.
Okay, and then we have problems to see the charge after the grace period if the contract number is changing from enterprise agreement.
Yes.
Yes, we changed in May, and 3 years are over, and now
You can't see the historical when the, interesting, that's great feedback. We'll take a note of that. No, I appreciate it.
Using that, now that what you showed the management group view, you can have all the subscriptions over to the management group. The management group view, we look at the data of subscriptions over time.
But I think that the EA role, the EA has changed.
Yes.
So, go ahead, Michael. What? Oh, repeat what Pankaj said. Yeah, so at the management group level, so one of the answers could be that if you use management groups to look at the cost, it works across subscriptions. So if your subscription changed with a new EA enrollment, then you'll still be able to see both through the management group view.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another one question, if the enterprise agreement is ending next month, can I take the reserved instances over the ending?
My understanding is that does not yeah.
If I make reserved instances, I pay years for 3 years on the beginning of the reservation. And if the enterprise agreement is ending next month,
that span.
is it?
It should, because when you pay reserved instances in Azure, you pay it upfront, right? So you paid it within the.
Oh, so it transfers over. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
But we should follow up on that. Why don't we get your information and I can.
So that's a possibility to take money I didn't spend to the next enterprise agreement.
We need to follow up on it. I think that's, yeah. I'm on the engineering team, so I want to make sure that I get that right. Yeah. So we'll look into that. We'll follow up with you. Okay. What is it?
It is confirmed that the RIs you paid before the EA agreement.
And then they transfer to the new one. There you go. Answered. Thank you.
Hi. First, a really nice presentation. Good job.
Thank you.
And my question is, reserve instance, you have that on compute. Are there any plans to offer that on storage?
We're always evaluating ways that we can add additional benefit for reserved instances. I don't have anything announced today, but that is, we would like to expand that offering as customer request.
And then my other question is, reserve instance, let's say if I go and set up a reserve instance on a D2, can I use that for like a D2 V1, D2 V2?
Yes,
Okay.
they span across those.
Okay. You do, huh?
In the same region.
Okay.
And the family.
Yeah, so that's what it means. The D is the family.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hi, I have 2 questions. How does the sharing the reserved distances between families work? So if I pay $100 for a D2 V2, and then I decide to do a D3 V2, do I just, is that $100 just applied to that?
Do you want to go talk into the mic too? Sorry.
So if you have like, you're paying $100 and you're in the D family in a certain region, you could use 2 instances that are in the D family that are $50, or you could use 4 that are 25. Okay. So as long as the total is the same, you can go within this family in the same region.
But the reserved instance price, isn't that different per type of instance? So
yeah, but we're talking within the same family.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's as long as it goes to the total, right? As long as you're within the same family and the same region, you can just use it as you want.
Okay, got it. And my second question is, there's a lot of great tools about budgeting after things have been provisioned. What is available before?
Yeah, so that's actually something that is one of my things that I have some folks working on today is how do we do better on calculators and forecasting? Is that what you mean? So yes, we need to do better there.
Okay, Excel is the #1 tool.
Yeah,
right now,
no, well, loud and clear. Actually, so is that when I say it as calculators and forecasting, is that
Yes.
capture what you're saying?
Yeah, because I had a.
I'd love to hear more about what you'd like on that front. Maybe if you
I have ideas. So
hang on, I would love to hear it. Yes, we're thinking about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I use the reserve, instance for the scaled VM? Because, like with app service environment or service fabric, that's basically what we need actually, because with the single VM, I can stop it. I can have other mechanism or scale it down. But the biggest thing is for the scaled VM that they cost $1,000 a month or so. So that's my concern.
I'm not sure. I think that you had it on the slides. If you go back to the presentation,
I had it for the hybrid.
Everything is there in the bottom. Like we had everything that is covered. If the app service is not there, then it's not.
I don't remember.
I don't remember right now.
Yeah, obviously I'm not an expert in reserve
Okay.
instances right now, but yeah, I would imagine all of this should be on the website, right?
It doesn't, you think, it doesn't, it's not there.
That's right. We should strive to do better there. And so if the feedback is, hey, we need to get our documentation, so I'll take that one. I think I can help with that.
App service, it looks like it's not here.
Yeah, I didn't remember seeing it.
We can double check though. If you send us an email, guillermo.gomez,
Okay.
or to Joanna,
Or
then
yeah,
we can follow up.
you can give it to me.
The other question I have is basically for the VMs, you can stop it right now, but you have to have a partial and automated process to start it. Like if I want to have a VM that, like basically stay, off at night and then basically during the work hours.
Yeah.
I think that's a cost-saving stuff that's basically needed feature. You
Yeah.
know, like if I can schedule that, like start and stop automatically without, writing partial scripts or.
That's available.
It's available now?
Yeah, that's something I saw
Through,
on Monday.
it's
Oh,
through
man.
automation. If you go to the automation booth,
Okay.
which is next to the policy and
That's good then. I think that's answer my
Right
question.
on the VM's blade.
Now it's like you can schedule.
Okay.
Mechanism.
Okay, that's good.
Great, thank you.
Something I learned.
Ron, thank you, Ron.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question and a suggestion.
Okay.
I'm building on the RI, so if you're trying to switch from a different family, so let's say I'm in the G and I want to switch to the D, how does that work? Do you get a credit and then you can reapply to the Ds?
Yeah. No, I think. Yeah, here's what I'll say is that we have actually been working on adding ways to make that more flexible in terms of how do people exchange and that kind of a thing. I don't really have a good answer for you right now.
Okay. You don't lose?
You can go up.
Yeah, the answer right now is
Yeah, so I want to be able to go down.
But you do get a credit.
Yeah, and this is done basically by our operations and support team today.
Okay.
So that's how that happens. So I can't tell you this is how you do it in the tool or this is how you do it in the
Okay.
portal. But over time, I think that we'd like to make that easier.
Yeah.
But right now, the only answer is to call support.
Okay. And then in terms of the suggestion, one of our challenges that we have is that application owners don't necessarily go to the portal all the time. We would love, and I'll call this a application owner invoice, to be able to push this to their inboxes. So think of it as a utility bill. My utility tells me what I consume, my trends, and then at the bottom it says these are the opportunities for you to save money on your gas or
Great
electric.
idea.
Love to have that in, to push it out
Right.
to them on a monthly basis or whatever they subscribe.
Not like a bill in the traditional sense,
would-
but
yeah,
yeah, it's for the sake for the teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Great idea.
what you're doing on the portal is awesome, but if you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them
Yeah.
jump. I can't make them go to the portal, but if I can push something to their
Yeah.
inbox.
Either email or that sounds
Yeah,
great.
that
Okay,
would-
thank you.
yeah.
Great idea.
Yep.
Hello, great presentation, by the way. So you've got flexibility up there and prioritize compute capacity. When you choose your reserved instance, you go, oh, why they're all? There's not a lot of clarity about what prioritized capacity means.
Yeah.
And if you choose that, do you give up the flexibility within families?
Yeah.
That's, if we're spending $300,000 on, or $1 million on reserved instance, which is our current recommendation, these are big questions. What's the gray area behind those two options? Sorry.
I know, you know, and maybe Guillermo, I don't know if you want to take this one too. Clearly, I need to learn more about reserved instances.
In simplicity firms, do we still get the flexibility between families if we choose prioritize capacity?
Yeah, I mean, so what it means prioritize capacity is really if you pay for it, you're not gonna run out of capacity because that is reserved for you, right?
Right.
If you switch, you're still within the prioritize.
And if we go flexible, do we give up our
Oh, yeah, no, you don't. Okay, so just to restate what you said for the microphone, the prioritization stays in effect no matter if you.
So what benefit are you getting by choosing flexibility then? You should always choose capacity.
So what do you mean? So if you.
When you're buying the reserved instance, you've got this option, flexibility or prioritize capacity.
Flexibility means that you can go to a different size. Let's
Oh,
say
I
that
know
you
what
buy
you're
a
saying.
certain size and then you want
No, I know what you're saying in the UI. It was a radio button.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I need to follow up on that. That's a great.
stuff, 'cause-
Let me. I'm going to look into it. I don't know the answer to the question. I hear what you're saying though. That could be. I understand. I didn't get it at first, but thank you. It's good feedback.
Thanks very much.
Yep.
You don't have to walk over to that side anymore. Thank you. Very excellent presentation. Azure Advisor is great. The one thing I'd love to see, and if there's any tool or something similar elsewhere, I'd love to know about it. But we struggle. A lot of our VMs, are very underutilized, and so a 10% CPU threshold is
like the one I was showing.
It's fine, But what I'd really like to see is if I could define ports that people would typically need to connect to, like a remote desktop port or a website or any application servers that we may be hosting on that VM. If I could define those to know if the clients are connecting into those servers in any form, that would be really helpful to even know if that server is needed to be online or to be up. Are you aware of anything like that?
That you're saying, hey, who's accessing this VM?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so. I don't think that we have anything like that today. No, that's a good suggestion though. Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk to the advisor team, which is a whole different thing.
Yeah, no, it's a great suggestion. We'll make a note of that and we'll pass it on to the advisor team.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, we have another one.
So I languish in a multinational, huge organization.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. I don't have access to my EA portal, so I make almost exclusive use of CloudIn because the people who have access to it don't know anything about how the cloud actually works. They send people to me to help them get started. So one of the biggest things I use in CloudIn is the ability to get those amortized or actual cost reports by resource for multiple subscriptions, because we have 2 to 3 subscriptions per application for us, but we deal with our budgeting at the application level. Will we start to be able to see that?
Yeah, we'll be doing scheduled reports with the same set of functionality that you would use in CloudIn. So
I'll eventually be able to combine my production and
yeah,
dev.
this by the end of this year, before December.
Fantastic.
Right? Right? Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I gotta go. Dashboards too? CloudIn's got some cute dashboards you can set up for an application owner.
Not
Maybe
sure
later.
about that, yeah.
I really love the cost dashboard they have.
Okay. Yeah. All right, great feedback. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I think we're done.